We have a great show lined up for you today with plenty of topics as the Browns are extremely busy. Despite being in Philly, joint practice, coverage of that. I'm going to talk to Spencer German of Locked On Browns. That's covered for you. And then there's two pretty huge pieces of news that came out around the Browns possibly signing. They might be signing, they might not be signing. They're doing due diligence. Who knows where it is, but it feels like Isaiah Bond, who was cleared of charges in his own issue, is potentially going to be a Cleveland Brown. We're going to talk to Corey Kennan of Daft on Draft about what that looks like for the Browns, what type of prospect they're receiving from his perspective. You know, I'll do my homework too, but Corey will enlighten us on what he knows. And then very excited to have Brad Ward on the show with me too, as we're going to talk about the huge news out of nowhere around Quinshon Judkins. A lot going on. The latest Browns film breakdown. Let's get going right now. What's up? Welcome in. It's a Friday edition of the show. The Browns are going to be off today. It's prep day, walkthrough day, mental day ahead of the 1 o'clock kick tomorrow. You'll get your game day pod tomorrow as you always do. That'll be available for you to listen to, guys to watch, all the pertinent information. So check that out. But for now, the Browns had a really busy Thursday that started like late afternoon. Brad, I was posting about, and obviously Brad Ward here with me. Happy to have him. Love anytime get to spend with Brad. And you know, Brad, it was like 5 o'clock. I was posting the recap of what I learned from people I talked to, or what videos came out around the Browns with the Philly, in Philly with the, joint practices with the Eagles. And it felt like the Browns had a good day. We'll talk about that. Our guest is going to kind of elaborate on why the perception was the Browns had a great day. But we learned Quinshon Judkins is not going to be facing charges, like formal charges. They're going to drop everything. And what it feels like. Okay, so what happens here, Brad? You probably enlightened your folks about this, but I'm just going to kind of remind everybody. There's a grand jury who gets the presentation of information. It's very low bar established here to, actually bring formal charges. The misdemeanor charges that were brought to him. Then they got to go through like, what are we doing? How are we prosecuting the case? What does it look like? Do we have enough in the burden of evidence that we have to prove? Is there enough here to run the case to get a win? Like the prosecutor has to know, can we win the case? And there's a lot of back and forth between both sides. And there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of like, does this add up? Does this check out? And what you presume in these, Brad, is that similar, I mean, just the nature of it. I don't mean to be like presumptive, but the nature of it is like the victim usually stops participating in the case for whatever reason that may be, whether there's an under the table agreement on money, or like in Mike Hall's case, you gather that it was like his significant other who probably realized that the nature of this fight, this one night issue, could cost him a significant amount of money. And if you are trying to work that out as a couple, nobody wants that. But that doesn't seem to be the case here, Brad. You can walk us through what we learned and a little bit of like how this is different and why I think this is less an open and close suspension case than I think people perceived it, right?
Yeah, I guess my perception of it was, at first, because my perception has changed as this has all come out, right? Like, you can't rush to judgment on these things because you never know what's going to come out. But the first, idea that it took so long for her to allege the assault was kind of a like, well, let's wait and see, right? And then there's this idea that they've known each other for a long time. It's been an on again, off again thing. And there was the information out there that she had, sought counsel with her family and friends on whether she should even pursue the charges because he's such a close friend with her, or they've known each other for so long, was kind of the narrative around what took her so long. But then today we get in this information that the charges they're not going to proceed with, pressing any charges, and this has been dropped. No charges coming for Judkins. That the length of the timeline that it took for her to allege this went into them dropping this, along with the idea that there was some camera footage, surveillance camera footage of her within that time frame where she was allegedly seen not with the injuries that she alleged, is kind of what I took away from the tweet from Slater, who had kind of the scoop on this on social media. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of what the takeaway was, or the reason that they gave for dropping the charges. So, I was
It's
surprised.
dicey. We're playing. Yeah, me too, man. When we're
I was
playing, like,
surprised.
the thing that I've talked about on the show many times is I hate the role of like playing courtroom drama stuff. Like it happened with
Yes.
Watson. It's gone on and on. There's a lot of guys. This
Did
is
it
something
for a
bigger to
whole
discuss. It's bigger to
so
discuss.
much
It's
with
huge.
Watson. Yeah.
And then we saw today, like Rishi Rice is going to get a Sue L. Robinson ruling, but it's going to allow him to play 5 games. This is the nature of the NFL. I mean, this is the kind of the underbelly of the league. And like,
Yeah.
with this case, Mike Hall's case was different because of how quickly it was like, okay, it's dropped. This had like run out a little bit
And she
because
recanted her statements in the Mike Hall case.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. This is a story where it felt like the pursuit of charges was active until the end,
Ongoing.
and that the prosecutor had decided, like, hey, there's some questionable footage here from maybe a camera she had or something or whatever, maybe something on social media that was like, this is the date that you had said you had these issues but that we're not seeing it. And there was no one-on-one witness that saw it. And then there was no camera footage that saw anything. And I don't know, there's still a million things we don't know. We do know that there was like inside the summation of charges, like I'm trying to make sure I quote this the right way, but he basically did admit that there was some sort of physical altercation between the two. Judkins did, to the degree of like, I punched her in the face stuff, like that doesn't get said, but there was an altercation of some variety between these two. And the NFL maybe holds on to that. I don't know. I really don't know. The NFL plays their own really weird game here where they get to be judge, jury, executioner. But this is less like, oh, it's going to be 4 to 6 games. And now it's like, okay, if they didn't feel like they could prosecute here, and it's not open and closed the way some of these are, and now you're kind of taking word on like, okay, so you're going to believe the word here of someone that the prosecutors didn't believe was worth investing time to pursue charge because they didn't feel like they could win. That's just where it's going to get interesting. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not here to tell you, and I know you're not either, Brad, that Judkins is going to walk away from this without an NFL suspension. But I do know, as the accelerator is now pushed down without the formal stuff going on way down in South Florida, that the acceleration gets pushed on. He's got to get a contract. And like, what I want to talk with you about here real quick is he's still week 1 possibility for me. Like, I think if, we set all that stuff aside and, because what are you going to do? The NFL machine, and like, I don't care if he was selling insurance. If you had this high value insurance salesman asset who doesn't have any legal trouble anymore and is really good for the State Farm, the Allstate, the whoever, they're going to bring him in. Like the NFL is going to do the same. There's nothing legally going on now. The Browns are going to do the same. They're going to sign him out. Imagine that happens over the weekend. And I don't know where, Brad, both of these sides stood on the whole thing. Because, around him, between Amanawari behind him, and then obviously who was picked in front of him between Carson and Higgins. And those guys were guaranteed an entire deal here. So like, now that he has nothing following him, is the agent like, well, let's go, step up to the plate? That part will be a little interesting. I would hope that, given the length of this situation and this did not come as some unbelievably unexpected news to the people involved. I cannot imagine it. To us, it was like out of nowhere, but like to them, there's back and forth happening nonstop between the prosecutor and the attorney. So like, I hope that there has been some movement in what this looks like from a contract standpoint, because to me, Brad, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to throw it to you. This feels like he's signed over the weekend. He's in Berea Monday. And that gives you 3 full weeks of ramp up. You get the third preseason game. He will play at the end of that week a little bit. And then you're going to get the Rams at home. And then you get the bye week and you get the full game week prep for week 1. It's possibly plays week 1. If it drags into like late next week, it's not happening. So that's where I'm at with it. Continuing to think side eye, the NFL might have something to say too. But, what are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I think that you have to force action from the NFL here. So, they were keeping him away because if they brought him in, he was probably put on the commissioner's exempt list and he's not playing. So at this point, now that the charges are dropped, you want to expedite everything. You want him in and signed and with the team as soon as possible to force the NFL's hand. As of 3 days ago, Mary Kay Cabot said the NFL was still investigating this situation. So wherever they're at with that, we don't know. There may be civil charges to come. We don't know. There's 2 different bars there when the civil courts, the preponderance of evidence in the civil court, the, reasonable doubt in the criminal court. So the NFL will pay attention to all of that. But they're less likely to wait on the civil court. We know that, right? Like, so they'll take action before that comes to any kind of an end. So I think you get him in as soon as possible. hopefully, to your point, they've back channeled what this deal looks like. Was just a couple days ago he waived his right to a speedy
Yeah.
trial, and we were thinking, well, he could play this year if you look at the the Rashee Rice case. If they don't have anything, you know what I mean? Maybe they
Hmm.
do sign him and bring him in. Now you got to bring him in, sign him right away, get him with the team right away, and see what the NFL does. If they're in the throes of a real investigation where they're still thinking about suspending him, and we don't really know where they stand with this stuff because they're kind of wonky and all over the place with these suspensions. If
Yep.
they're still thinking about suspending him 4 games, they could put him on the exempt list, and that's fine because then you're just doing time served, like Mike Hall did, right?
Yeah.
Like, but you've got to force their hand because if they're not, then he can start practicing and maybe you don't get any suspension and he can play week 1, or it's a lesser suspension, or it's a delayed suspension. We have no idea where the NFL is at, but you've got to force their hand at this point. And so get the contract done, get him with the team as soon as possible. That seems like the obvious next step for the Browns.
Yeah, I think you're right. And a lot of that is spot on. It's if you're sitting here wondering, which I think is fair, is maybe you got him on your fantasy team. I don't know. Maybe there's
Yeah.
more to it. There's a lot of stuff at play here because some
Yeah.
people drafted before. Let's talk about what's really important, I guess. But yeah, it's like if you think he's playing week 1, he needs to be in there in Berea and get it signed this week. And he's got to be there on Monday and he's got to get 3 full weeks of ramp up. Like you would hope, I would imagine. There has been some serious contact about like what some workouts he should be doing in this time. There's a lot going on in a young man's mind and all of that when you're in the middle of that situation. And obviously there's some work that Quinshon needs to do on himself, right? In this situation to come back a better person from whatever happened here, good or bad. You hope for the best for the female involved, and you hope for the best for Quinshon, that this is not something that he would put him or any other person in the spotlight with. Like, just finding a way to level your head in moments of anger, right? And it could just be yelling. Who knows if anyone was actually, I'm not even trying to claim that was the case, but some altercation happened, and it's just, how do you learn from it, right? There's big questions about Isaiah Bond now that the Browns are maybe entering that world too, and we don't have to delve into that right now, but like it's like the hopes for Quinshon as his teammate in New England is having some, again, it's training camp success, it's hype, it's all that, but like he's probably watching. He's probably really eager. He's probably like ready to go. And I hope that physically he's ready to go. There's not too much too fast where he doesn't have a soft tissue issue or anything like that. But Brad, from a pure football standpoint, there was a lot of question about whether you'd have him this year at all. And now it seems like it's in the direction of the Browns will have him. And I think that really matters to them as far
It
as
does.
having some success offensively, especially in, your wide receiver running back rooms. I thought at times we've been a little afraid of being thin. And again, we're just talking football here. That changes a little bit today because of this. So it's, a good day from the offense in Philly too. You start to feel football level of hope again to an extent, right?
Yeah, I mean, we won't get into the optics of, the Judkins and Bond thing happening on the same day or within hours of each other.
And it's
But
not our job to be totally
no,
transparent. Like our job is to evaluate football. I'm not judging. I mean, like we can talk about it with like the situations that where both of them were, no one approves of that. No one in their right mind approves of the allegations in both cases. So let's be
right.
abundantly clear about that. But it's
Yep.
not for us to know what actually happened, and it's not for us to scrutinize or to really like say I'm above making that decision. That's not the job here. The job is to tell you whether the football players are good, because I think you would agree with me, Brad, and all the dicey moves that Andrew Berry has made in the last 3 years. If more of them were good, and I'm not just talking about criminal case, I'm talking about the Kadarius Tonys, the Malik McDowells.
Yep.
Like, if more of them had turned out to be better football players, particularly the big quarterback move,
Yeah.
you set aside a lot of that stuff because you're winning
Oh.
ball games, and so the batting record for the average here for Andrew Berry is below 100 on this, but way below. So it's just like if these guys end up being good, that's their reason they're pursuing them, and it'll change the scope of how you feel. But it's just not our job to live in that world and like sit up on the mountaintop and tell you what's right and wrong. Is the NFL has proven who it is over and over again, and we're just here to tell you who these guys are as football players. And Quinshon Judkins is an excellent football player, and I think he will help the Browns offense this year.
Yeah, no question about it. And you can't help but feel good coming off of the 2 joint practices where it sounds like you're in the trenches and the offensive defensive line held their own
Mm-hmm.
against the world champions, and you had a good offensive day today. And then you add Judkins into that mix, and you've got now, Deontay Johnson, who had also, by all accounts, a pretty good couple days, given their other corner fits in Philly. So you kind of feel better about the wide receiver and running back room altogether and the offense altogether. You certainly feel good about what the defensive line has been able to do over 2 days against them, disruptive wise. So you kind of feel pretty good about things so far this week. I would like to see what Dylan Gabriel does and everything else that we're watching as far as roster position battles on Saturday, and come away from that healthy. And I would think it would be a really, really good week for the Browns as far as progress towards week 1.
From a pure, ironically enough, spreadsheet perspective, they got better today getting Judkins back. We'll see what the Bond thing turns into. And we're certainly not here to tell you a guy who is probably a middle round wide receiver is going to change anything about this year. But I just am talking in terms of like, hey, I think they need to maybe add someone at running back, and they probably could use adding another wide receiver. Well, they kind of did that in a way today.
Yes.
So we'll see if that matters. We'll see if Andrew Berry can find one of those lottery tickets that he keeps chasing. Whether you believe in the lottery or not, he's involved in it. He's heavy in it. So we'll see if one of them turns up one of those lucky numbers that he needs. But yeah, that's it. That's good. It's good stuff, Brad. We're gonna shift over now in this portion here on YouTube in the video format. If you want to come over to Browns Film Breakdown and check out a quick few minutes with Corey Kennan talking about Isaiah Bond the prospect, swing over and check that out. And then Spencer German's bit will be at the end of that as well. So brownsfilmbreakdown.com. $10 is all it costs. Just a couple cups of coffee a month to support some great stuff, really great stuff that goes right back into the stuff you get and consume. The money is turned right back into the content you receive for the quality of such stuff. So thanks to Brad for being here, and I will catch all of you after this quick break, or if I'm seeing you for the end today, we appreciate you being here.